This programming is brought to you in partnership with Morningstar Counseling and Society of Care. Both organizations provide mental health services and programming to sustain and strengthen a future of health and wellness for Indian country.
Good day, everybody. Want to say welcome and thanks for tuning in to our podcast, The Indigenous Voice. We're excited to bring you some more amazing program and have some more additional special guests. So today we are going to focus on culture being connected to mental health. That is the theme for today's podcast, and it is episode 3 of this amazing podcast. We're excited to continue to have this programming and to continue to provide this for our relatives and the communities that we serve. Just wanted to kind of provide a breakdown of the programming that is going to happen today. So, of course, we'll start with introductions, introducing who we are and also the guests that we have here. We have an amazing, unique situation today. We have a lot of youth attending our podcast today, which is great, a great problem to have. So we'll have a lot of perspective and conversation on the topics we're covering today. And one of the topics that we always like to focus on when we have new guests is the perspective on mental health through the Native youth and their perspective and their lenses and how they think about mental health. And so we'll ask those questions and get their ideas on that. And then we'll move to how do we define culture? I know that word can have so many different meanings. It could be broad. It could be a little bit more intimate and also sometimes complex too. So just kind of get that conversation going on how do we define culture and getting a perspective from our Native youth. And then also we'll move into how do we connect culture with mental health and how do those connect with each other and balance out. And we want to get also more views from our Native youth on that perspective. And then we'll move into our psychoeducation flyers, which would be ADHD and suicide prevention. And then, of course, we'll end with upcoming events and more notifications and how you can stay up to date on those different events coming up. We'll share some Facebook pages that we want to make sure everybody's aware of and have access to those types of activities that are going to be coming up. And then we'll end with a coping skill, and then we'll have final thoughts and different closing words for today's episode. So like I said, we have some really great guests today. And we'll start with introductions. My name is Macky Scott. I work with Morningstar Counseling as the Community Outreach Coordinator. I'm also a member of the Winnebago Tribe of Nebraska, and I live in the Winnebago community.
My name is Shailece Porter. I am the Youth Coordinator for Society of Care and Morningstar Counseling. I am a part of the Omaha Tribe, and I live on the reservation as well.
Hamitake api one day tate will call me Fraser Macky api isanti the koto yate king kan oshpai bare will kanto himatahan kashi chango himatahan. Hello friends and relatives. My name is Tate will call me Fraser. I come from the Santee Dakota tribe and the Rosebud Sioux tribe. Today I am here with the Society of Care, the Walking Buffalo Talking Circle.
My name is Christian Torres. I'm part of Young Buffalo Talking Circle. Been here for 4 years, and that's it.
My name's Chaz Vargas. From the Omaha Tribe of Nebraska. I live on a reservation in Walhill.
Okay. Welcome guests. I believe this is each of their first time being on the podcast, and it's great to have each of you here and to provide your perspectives. So glad to have you. We'll like I said, we'll have another few youth come in and introduce themselves when we get to those other topics when we reach that through the programming. Okay, as I said before, with our new guests, we always like to pick their brains and get their ideas when it comes to mental health. And so when we have new guests, we like to see, how do they incorporate mental health in their lives, or what are their thoughts, about mental health. Or maybe you're not really sure what mental health is, maybe you have somewhat of an idea. This is just a chance to give the youth the opportunity to express and share your thoughts on these. Like I said, there's no right or wrong to these different answers. Just want to see how our youth are thinking about these types of topics. So, one of the questions that we always ask is, what are your thoughts on mental health? What comes to mind when we say mental health? And just feel free to jump in or hop in wherever you want.
Well, mental health is more of like your emotional state being for yourself and like your thoughts and your feelings.
I think mental health is being generally able to think, feel, and react in ways that you live your life.
So like mental health is like about how you think, how you feel, how you be like in an emotional state, and you can be good and bad at sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's what I think about it.
All right, nice. Yeah. So it's good to kind of see there's, each of you had different responses to that, and that's okay, because when we say mental health, it's a really big field. There's a lot that comes into it. There's individual feelings and emotions, but also, when we talk about historic trauma, that's part of mental health, or even setting boundaries or how to cope with your anxiety. So that's why I say there's not only one right answer for that when I ask you these questions. So just to keep that in mind as well, that mental health is just a really broad field there. And so, with those answers which you talk about, or what you mentioned here, when we say mental health, like, what was it like for your upbringing with mental health? Like, was that incorporated in your life, or, as growing up, was that something you heard, or was that something shared from your elders or your parents or anything like that? Like, what was mental health like for each of you growing up?
For me, mental health was very incorporated in both culture and my regular life schedule. Staying healthy and doing the things that I love, like doing my cultural practices and all that, really helped with my mental health in a good place. So.
Thanks for sharing that.
My mental health, it's been good. Like, I think mental health, what helps me is like go hang out with my friends, go do something. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I heard about it from like NFL players, NBA players. Mm-hmm. They always try to work on it before everything. Mm-hmm. Like they'll take a break or something. And I just do that too sometimes.
Yeah, that's good. And yeah, just kind of seeing our, some of these celebrities and idols practice mental health. And so, with you growing up, was that, I guess, did you hear that word a lot often when you was little, or is that kind of like more, you're hearing it more as you grow up now?
I'm hearing it more as I grow up now.
Okay.
Like right now. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then Chaz, what about you? What was like, I guess, growing up mental health for you? Like, was that something you heard all the time, or something that was instilled in you, or maybe it wasn't, or, what was that like for you growing up?
Never really heard the word mental health growing up. Mm-hmm. Like, basically what he said is just going to hang out with friends or doing something instead of just sitting around, like playing sports and stuff, going around, walking around, talking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's a common thing with our youth is, even me, like growing up, mental health wasn't something that I heard all the time, or, it wasn't instilled in me, or, I never heard my parents or grandparents saying, hey, you need to practice good mental health and take care of your mental health. Like kind of what you're just saying, like that's kind of coming more to the forefront and more shared now and more common now. And I think, mental health is being taken more serious and more kind of highlighted more. Shailece, did you want to add anything onto that, or do you have any comments on that?
I would just say that, I'm 23, and 3 years ago is when I learned about mental health and self-care and things like that. And that it's never too late to learn about mental health and learning how to take care of you, not only physically, but mentally as well, because that is just as healthy as being physically healthy. Because if you don't have a healthy mind, you could struggle in a lot of different ways. So taking care of yourself mentally is also just as important as physically.
Right. I agree with that. And in our last episode, Callie kind of touched on that, where the mind and body kind of have a balance and they affect one or the other. If you're not taking care of your body, your mental health's going to feel it, but vice versa. If you're not taking care of your mental health, your body's going to feel it as well. So I think what we're going to learn today too is even though that's something that we didn't hear growing up, we've been practicing mental health throughout our whole lives. Like a few you shared, going out with your friends and hanging out with them, that's a protective factor. That's mental health. That's something you enjoyed doing. Your culture, being practicing that and how that makes you feel, that's part of mental health. So although that wasn't, the awareness wasn't there, we were practicing that. But also something I want to share later in episode 2 is, as Indigenous people, like our cultural practices, we've been doing mental health for as long as we've been here. We just didn't coin it that term or whatever. But so we'll make those connections along with the show. So one of the next questions too, thinking about this, why do you think mental health is important? And just feel free to hop in wherever you want. Why do we think mental health is important? Or do we even think it's important? Maybe it's not. What are your thoughts?
There are many positive and negative things for mental health, but more than anything, it helps you cope with your feelings, and it just enables that for people. So.
Good, okay.
I think it's important because it's the way you feel, it's the way you think. It's just how you do stuff. Then if you think bad, you're going to do bad. If you think good, you're going to do good.
Right. I agree with that. I think, you touch on a good concept there. Sometimes in the mental health field, we have these challenging thoughts where it's, we can have a negative self-talk where, I'm not worthy, or man, I suck at basketball, or I'm just a bad person. And so studies show when we have that negative self-talk, that really affects how we do things and think about certain things. So there's also a practice called reframing and self-positive talk. So being nice to ourselves and talking to ourselves in a positive manner, so say maybe you didn't do well in a basketball game. Like, well, I didn't make it where I wanted to, but I showed up, I played, and I'm there and being a part of the team. That's part of being positive and reframing your thinking, What about you, Chaz? What are your thoughts on mental health being important or not important at all?
Well, and it enables people to learn and work well and contribute to their community and like other stuff.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. All right. Thanks for the answer. Appreciate that. So moving on to the next question, with some of the concepts that you're learning now about mental health and the things that you're going through now as a young adult, is there something that if there's something you could tell your younger self that now, how would you say that? Is there something you would tell your younger self that now that or how would you say that? Because I'm getting mixed up on words. What would you,
what is something you would tell your younger self now about mental health? Something like that you learned and know now. Like what do you wish that you could have known when you were younger?
Sorry, that was like a tongue twister for me.
Well, you see, I'm only 16, but me being at this young age, I have experienced a lot of struggles with mental health. So as me being older and looking back at my younger self, I would say, asking for help isn't a weakness, and you need to come forward with your problems and issues. Even if you don't trust someone, at least write it out. Get your thoughts and your feelings out. That way you're not keeping them all cooped up in your mind and your thought. And and then also being in a healthy state, taking care of yourself, not just staying in your room, or going out and doing things will help make your mental health more positive. Instead of just sticking to yourself. You want to go out and do more things, and it'll push you to a better future in the later years.
Okay. Yeah, great. Love your answer. You touched on so many pieces there, and like I said throughout the show, some of the stuff that you said we're definitely going to touch on later in the show, so thanks for sharing that.
I'll probably tell my younger self, just tell people what you're going through, ask for help, tell people how you're feeling, because it could get bad, and you always need someone to help you with stuff.
Right.
Because you don't want that in your mind for.
Definitely. Got anything for us, Chaz?
Well, I'll tell my younger self, just keep doing you.
Okay.
Nice.
So that's good. I'm glad that you guys are thinking about that. That's good. Okay, so next we'll transition into the next segment, and this is kind of the main question I want everybody to think about is how do we define culture? So when we think about culture, what comes to mind, or, you know, what is culture, you know? And I'll kind of start just to kind of give us an idea. Then Shailece, you can go next, and then whoever wants to hop in. I don't want to feel like it's you know, just hop in wherever you feel comfortable. It doesn't always have to be you, but if you want to, that's fine too. Just want to make that comfortability for our guest here. But okay, so the question is, how do we define culture? So to me, I'll just kind of give a little background on me. I grew up in Sioux City, Iowa, which is 30 minutes from the Winnebago Reservation. Most of my childhood, I grew up there. On the weekends, I would come down here to Winnebago, Nebraska, and live with my dad and spend time with my dad, and on the holidays and definitely in summer times. And so just kind of having those brief moments of living on the reservation, being around the culture and the language, because I think, you know, they termed the phrase or words urban Indians. And so I kind of considered myself as an urban Indian growing up in a city. And when you're an urban Indian, it's kind of hard to stay connected to your culture and be around that. And so that was something, you know, I was missing through my childhood growing up, and didn't really get that exposure, only the time that I came down with my dad. And so my junior year of my high school career, I came to Winnebago. I went to high school here for junior and senior year. And during those years, like, it changed the person who I am. I learned more and kind of understood the culture of my people and the expectations, the do's and don'ts, and things like that. So when I think about culture, it's so broad in my perspective, or in my definition, that I think it's like, it could be language, it could be the songs we know, the stories that we tell, the dances that we practice, but also even like the simple doings. Like I think we all kind of heard, you're not supposed to whistle at nighttime, or, you know, when relatives come over, you provide them a meal, you share a meal, you make sure you cook enough for everybody. Or, you know, always, or, you know, in the white man world where they have cousins, we don't have cousins, we have brothers and sisters and things like that. So those are some of the things when I think about when we say culture. I guess that's how I would define it, is all those types of things meshed into one. But, you know, that's just my definition of culture. Everybody has a different definition for that, and I think that's kind of what we wanted to learn today. What was everybody's definition of that, and what that looks like for them, or what comes to mind when we think about culture. But what about you, Shailece? What comes to your mind when you think about culture?
Well, I agree, like, with a lot of things that you said. Like, you know, the like the basics, like the language and all of that. But when I think of culture, I think of the things that our ancestors have left for us to continue on in this world. And I guess, like, with the culture, I'm not a very cultural person. Like, I don't do a lot of our traditions and know a lot of our language, and that's where I wish I did, and I know that I can still learn and do all of that. But that's how I see culture, as ancestors leaving things for us to continue on with in a healthy way. And I know that, like, as times change, a lot of the traditions may change, but it doesn't make it any less culture, if that makes sense.
Right.
That's the way I see culture.
I like how you shared that, you know, and I love how humble you are. You're like, you know, you shared that you don't may not know a lot, but, you know, you're still trying and recognize that and working on that, you know. And I think that's just a challenge for some of our tribes, and as Indigenous people, is we're trying to learn these things, but, you know, because of historic trauma and then historic genocide, that some of those things were almost wiped away from us. And so you know, it's hard to learn some of those things. And at times I think we have some, you know, people that are knowledgeable in our practices, but they get kind of defensive on those things, on sharing those things. And also, when we think about culture, you might be taught one way from one of your elders, and then I might be taught a different way, you know. And I think what's important is respecting each other's teachings and thoughts and things like that, because I don't think it would be appropriate for me to say, well, you know, Shailece, you were taught that way, that's the wrong way. Like, why do you guys do that? This is how we do it. This is how my grandpa and grandma taught me. This is the right way. So it's like not really being respectful, you know. And I kind of see that sometimes, often with our relatives, where they kind of, I don't want to say bash, but they put each other's teachings down. And I don't think, you know, that's appropriate to do those types of things, because we're only practicing what was taught to us, you know, and it's passed on through generation to generation. But just kind of wanted to share that. But as for the youth, anybody, what are your how would you define culture? What comes to mind when we say culture?
I kind of agree with the both of you guys when culture is like based on a whole bunch of aspects, like a whole bunch of different things. But mainly to me, when I think of culture, I think of family, and I think of like the spiritual side, ceremonies, and the way I was grown and raised. I was like my life really does evolve around my culture, and I do so many cultural practices, and that does bring a lot of joy to me. And mainly culture, when I think of it, I think of the stories I was told as I was younger, our creation stories. I think about our elders. I think about help and hospitality and respect for everybody, and even respecting each other's beliefs. Like each different tribes, Umaha and Ho-Chunk, we all have different beliefs, and we all have our different ways of practicing and our different ways of learning. And to be respectful, you have to take that in, and you can learn yourself through the different tribes around you. And well, culture, yeah, it's basically everything into one. But mainly respect and family orientated for me.
Okay. I guess that just kind of sparks a question. I wouldn't ask that to you. Being an indigenous person, when we think about culture and define it, and all the things that come with it, do you think it's a responsibility for that individual to learn those things, or is that a choice? Or I guess, what are your thoughts on it, like when it comes to that?
Like, you may want to learn, you may not want to learn, and you gotta just respect that, and you gotta understand the way people come at it. And to me, you can take your time with it. People, like elders even, they want to start learning, so do it. It's never too late to learn. You can at least have a little bit of knowledge. And as for our people, everybody can step in and help each other and grow together as a community. To help with culture.
Yeah, well, thanks for that. I appreciate it. I don't want to throw a curveball at you, but it just kind of came to my mind, whatever. So thanks for sharing that. So what about you two? How would you define culture? What comes to mind when you think about culture?
Probably like learning stuff about it, like your language, your practices, your rituals, your everything about it.
Cool.
I would describe culture as like, learning your language, going to doings, and learning like the hand game and stuff. Like, I try to partake in that, like dancing, and my first year back dancing, and like there's like little doings that go around here, and I try to make it, like sometimes I can't.
Yeah. I think that's you bring up a good point about that too, is like, with the doings and the practices that are going on in the community, unfortunately we have to balance those types of things. And as all indigenous people, we kind of had to adapt throughout history. Unfortunately, some of us were forcibly removed, and we were accustomed to that location. That's where we live. We knew the weather, we knew what to hunt and all those things. But there's some tribes that got removed and relocated states away, and so they had to learn a whole new system, new animals, new hunting grounds and things like that. And so we adapt, and it kind of comes back to that conversation you just had, where today we have to adapt, where we have to balance our cultural practices and us as indigenous people, but also we have to have jobs and bring in income and make sure we're taking care of our families or school and things like that. And so it's almost like balancing two worlds, the indigenous world and the non-native world. So Chaz, like with those practices that you go to and dances, like what makes you want to go to those? Because I know sometimes some people are like, man, I don't want to go to that. I'd rather go be doing this. Like, what makes you gravitate to those things? Is it more like something you wanted to do, or is it more like your elders are like, hey, you need to be doing this, this is like expectation to you? I just kind of want to get more perspective of why you go to those types of practices.
Well, I go because just to watch and like instead of like if it starts like during the morning or something, like, you know, just sitting around all day, not doing nothing, you can go down there and partake in dancing or the game. Like, they have doings where they have masquerades in October. Like, they had one last night, and like the gore dance and sometimes war dance that goes on. And, yeah.
Okay. All right.
I have a question. So you guys say you guys practice like your ceremonies and like culture and stuff like that. What would you say is your favorite thing to learn about your culture?
Good question.
For me, learning more about our history and our ancestors really is my favorite thing. It's emotional, but you know, that means like I'm feeling it, and it just brings a lot of like happiness to me that I get to know the background. And I wanted to add in there that, you know, it's never too late, you know, to learn your culture and stuff, and it's good to relive it and to build it up again, because, you know, back then it was all taken from us, our language, our practices, and, you know, that hurt knowing that it's slowly dying down. So anybody and everybody, if you want to learn, go do it. Don't be afraid. Just do it. No one's here to judge. It's at least worth a shot to try and help your tribe and your leaders. But learning more of the history and our backstory helps me, because then I can like try and, I don't want to say be like them, but, you know, take after them and do what they did for our people.
Nice. Okay.
Thank you. What about you? You two, do you guys have any like the most anything? No.
Probably learning what they did back then, and learning my language. It's probably like my favorite thing to do.
Okay.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, that's fine.
I just asked, what is your favorite thing to practice in your culture?
While learning the language and trying to keep it alive, because my tribe is one of the ones that's slowly losing the language and beliefs and stuff, and, you know, like, basically just trying to keep it alive.
And to add to what Chaz said, I believe us Omahas have maybe 14 or between 14 and 40 fluent speakers. I know we lost a lot during the COVID year.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, he is right on that. Our language is, that's one thing that I like to learn, because I'm doing classes with an ICC.
Oh, nice.
So Andre Santasi, he's a really fluent speaker. Hearing him talk, it brings peace.
Right.
Every Mondays we're able to, you know, and Wednesdays. So just partaking in learning our language is something that I am doing for learning my culture more.
Nice, thanks for sharing that. And yeah, feel free to ask any other questions, and also our guests too. If you have questions for us, don't think it's just like we're interrogating you or interviewing you. Like, you interview us too, you know. So don't feel like it's just a one-way street. But to come back to Shailece's question, I think that's a really good question, because for me, when I think about, you know, what do I gravitate towards most when I think about the culture, and I really just love being around family. And, you know, I think one of our teachings across all Indigenous people is we share meals together. Like today we fed everybody that came, you know, and that's just like a practice. That's just a teaching, like, oh, we have a big group coming, so we got to feed them. And just like recently at our football game here in Winnebago, we had a visiting team, and we fed them even though we beat them pretty hardcore. We fed them still. We offered them a meal. I think they had chili dogs and stuff like that. So that's like another cultural teaching too, is like we feed our relatives and our visitors and things like that too. But, you know, for me, just being around family, sharing that meal with them, and then there's a lot of laughter and a lot of stories being told around those different doings. That's why I love, even though Thanksgiving that's a whole nother topic and another thing when it comes to Indigenous people. But the idea of it is we come together and we share a meal together, not really celebrating Thanksgiving, but just being around the family and sharing a meal and having that moment together is really powerful. and we, you know, especially birthdays and things like that. So to me, that's what I gravitate more, is that family setting. But kind of going back to the language too, Shailece, I asked you know, the youth to say a prayer today, and even just when you introduced yourself today, even though that's not my language, like I got chills when you were introducing yourself. Like it really kind of overwhelmed me with a little emotions, and this might sound corny, but it just like, it was really powerful to see you practice that and confidently say those words and come out of you and voice those. Like that really made me feel powerful and connected and really empowered as an Indigenous person, you know, just to, even though that's not my language, like I really love that for you, you know. I just wanted to share that as well. Okay, great. So we will take a small little commercial break, and we'll have our next youth come up, and we'll ask them the same question: how do they define culture and what that looks like for them? And then after that, we'll go into connecting culture with mental health. So please bear with us while we share our sponsors, our amazing sponsors that made this podcast happen, and we will return here shortly.
The Society of Care is a leading trauma resource for self-identified Native American youth and their families throughout Nebraska. We care for our relatives by providing accessible, affordable, and culturally sensitive behavioral care. As passionate advocates, we give Native youth a voice, connect them to services, provide wellness education, instill cultural pride, and empower them to build resilience. We believe in a brighter future for our relatives and are guided by caring deeply, transforming lives, and healing communities.
All right. I want to say thank you to our sponsors again. Thank you for providing this amazing podcast and this opportunity to bring our youth in to have these amazing conversations, much needed conversations. So shout out to Morningstar Counseling and Society of Care. We want to continue the conversation with how do we define culture and what that looks like, and definitely get that perspective from our youth. So we have 3 new youth that we want to introduce here to this conversation. And go ahead, just introduce your name, your tribe, and you know what group you're part of with. What group you're with here today.
Okay. Hamitakiapi, Jante Washde Nape, Chizapi, Heakasuta Kiawi, Imakiapi. Isanti makoche hemataha, Isanti Dakota na sik chongo yate, King Konspaya bide wakantaman shik chongo yate. Hello, my friends and relatives. I'm Hayaka Fraser. I greet you all with a good heart fought handshake. I come from the lands of the Isanti, and I'm Isanti Dakota in Rosewood. And I come from the Bide Wakantawa is one of the bands of the Ocheti Shakoni, and I'm a part of the Young Buffalo Talking Circle, and I've been in it for 2 years now.
Nice. Okay. Welcome.
Hamidakiapi, my name is Paul Thomas. Come from the Isanti Oyate.
Hamadakiapi. My name is Lana Denny. I am from Isanti, Nebraska. I am part of the Isanti Dakota tribe. I've been part of the Young Buffalo Talking Circle for about 4 years now.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you for introductions. I appreciate that, and glad that you're here with us to talk about these conversations. So like I said, we wanted to get your perspective on mental health and culture in today's episode. And just want to share with our listeners too that a really big focus of this podcast is to bring in Native youth from the communities that we serve, and to come in and talk about these different topics and perspectives, provide their opinions and their different ideas and things like that. So that is one way we highlight, or that's the highlight of the podcast here, and we're glad to have our guests here. So coming back to the question here, and just feel free to hop in wherever you 3 could feel comfortable. Don't think it's A, B, and C, whatever, just hop in where you want to. But like I said, the conversation is, how do we define culture? What comes to mind when you say culture? You know, just your opinions on that, or your thoughts on that.
Well, culture to me, and my understanding of it, it's the way I grew up. It's my life. It's who I am, and how you go about it, and how you do your ways. And to me, it's just, I grew up around it ever since I was born. So to me, it's my life. To me, you know, and other people, you know, are not around it as much, but they might have a different input on that. But to me, it's who we are. That's what I think.
Okay.
Um, it's like basically what she said. I grew up around it ever since I was born. Um, it's like life.
Okay.
When I think of culture, I think of the cultural practices and that I've learned to do, and I think of my elders and like respecting people. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Great. Um, so yeah, that's good to get different perspectives on culture, and so we'll move into the next segment too, where we kind of make that connection with culture and mental health. And so one of the and you kind of went over it right now. How would you describe culture? And you kind of shared a little bit about that too. But what types of cultural practices do you practice? When it comes to, like, you could be singing, storytelling, maybe some traditional foods you cooked, or dancing, sewing. What kind of practices come to mind when we say culture?
Cultural practices is just anything revolving around your culture and the way you live and how you live that way. And so, like, anything from, powwows or ceremonial doings, anything,
Okay.
that includes any of that. Even just cultural games is a big part. Even just simply learning your language and knowing it.
Shailece kind of had a question for our last group. Shailece, you want to ask that question again?
Yeah. So my question is what is your favorite or most thing that you like to practice in your culture?
For me, it's like the ceremonial doings. Being connected to that side of me, and knowing that we're still reviving it and it's still alive, and that we're willing to live it. And that's just a big part for me. And like that's because it's not like just your favorite practice or cultural practice. Like I said, it's a life. That's what I prioritize in my life. Balancing two worlds. For me, it's like one. And I grew up and was always told, especially by my dad and my family, growing up is, I learned to prioritize these ways, and these always come first.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that.
Can you say the question one more time?
I asked what was your most favorite thing to practice in your culture.
My favorite thing is to learn is learning my language, singing, like the ceremony doings. That's my favorite thing.
I wouldn't say I really had a favorite because I like to do it all, and so yeah.
Okay. All right. And so when we talk about these different types of activities, or I don't even want to call them activities, but this way of life and how we practice our culture, was there some kind of teachings that came with it? And when I say teachings, like something that was taught to me with when we're making something. It could be beading, sewing, or even food. When we're making something that was instilled into me was like, you have to have those good thoughts and good energy. You can't be thinking bad thoughts or hating somebody or frustration. You have to have a really good, clear, good sense of mindset at that moment when you're practicing it, because that energy, that thought, you're putting it into that work, and whatever you put in that is what that person's going to get on top of that item. So when I say with these practices, what teachings were instilled with those, or what kind of things came along with those that were taught to you guys?
Exactly what you said. Always have a good thought. Never think bad when you're doing any of those things. It's always that respectful side of things, and being able to put it in action. That's just a simple way of showing your culture. Like, it doesn't have to be doing actions or doing stuff. It's just having a good mind when you're doing it. It's just simply showing your culture.
Yeah, it was basically what you said. You just gotta have a good mind.
When I was taught these, I was told to keep a positive mindset, and because they said I was told that like you're helping to heal the people, and so to keep a positive mindset for them people.
Okay. Shailece, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, just listening to you guys. Like, what are the things? Like, can you guys give me an example of like what you guys practice? Like, the ceremonies. Like, what are the names that you guys?
Well, ceremony
Just-
and just sweat in general. Like it's all of it is just to help people and to heal them. All of this is we do this just to help one another and to heal and be there for each other, and that's what plays a big part. When people ask, why do you do all that? It's to help, and that's the main purpose around all of it is to help.
Yeah. It's basically what she said. It helps whoever comes will get help. Whoever asks.
Okay.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Oh, I was just asking like what like the traditional the traditional things you practice, just like how she said the ceremonies. Like I was just asking like what thing you like what tradition that you practice are referring to.
I'm referring to like dancing, because I was always told that every time you stepped into the arena, you are there to help heal the people. Into like, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and like another thing about that, it's like besides like the ceremonial side of things, all of it is ceremonial. Like powwows and stuff to people, that's a big part. Even just traditional games. Those are fun and all, but they all still have a purpose, and they all exactly like what Alana said. Like the minute you're out there, good thoughts. You're dancing for the ones that can't, and you're dancing for your people, basically. And so they're all fun, fun and everything, but there's another side to it too, and
Right.
those are one of the main ones that are like kind of fun. Traditional games, powwows,
Right.
ceremonial things.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned that. I think the what I love is like you mentioned that it's healing, and I kind of see a kind of consensus or an agreement with all you that when you do these types of things, you're not doing it for yourself, you're doing it for your people, but also healing. And I think that's a kind of common teaching that's amongst you three to see, and that's amazing. Like I can kind of resonate with that too. I just like I shared with the previous group was I wasn't really around my teachings because I grew up in a city, that there's not a lot of a lot of opportunities to learn those things in a city setting like that. But one thing that I really like doing is each year the Winnebago powwow, or Winnebago has the homecoming powwow in July, and for the last few years I've been helping the amazing communication team stream the powwow each summer. I think this will be my third year, but like I said, I never really danced, or I never was a part of the big drum or sing and stuff like that. But when I'm part of that streaming or helping stream the powwows, being out there on the circle, being around the drum and filming dancers and singers and things like that. And every time I get into that arena, mind you, I haven't danced or anything, but I feel really empowered. I feel really a sense of like really good, good feelings, and like all that negativity. And there was some stuff going on during powwow. It was just kind of frustrating me. But when I got there, those feelings went away, and I just felt really good. And there was times, like if I'm being honest, I was being emotional just seeing my people dance and singing and keeping these things alive. Like I really felt really gravitated to it, and that's something that's instilled in our blood and our genetics. Like with like I said, with someone coming from not really too culturally heavy background, when I was there, I just really felt engulfed by it and felt like I belonged in a way and at peace, and resonated with it. And just shows how powerful our culture can be, and it can switch us up. And so I, when you guys are talking about that, like that's kind of what brought to my my mind or whatever. But just wanted to share that. So what types of when we're practicing these types of things, I kind of just shared that too, but what kind of feelings do each of you feel when you practice these types of practices?
The feelings is just no words can explain the feelings. It's just living that and being able to do that is just emotionally, and like the can't put it into words. It's just how it is, and I grew up around it, and that's when I feel most safe, and that's when I feel most comfortable. Like when I'm out there, like especially just dancing, if it's just simply just dancing or being able to go pray, my worries all go away. And that's what plays a big role in all that, is like when I'm out there, I don't worry about nothing, and just worry about the good feelings that I have when I dance, and just doing any of that. And it's always just good feelings, even if I'm not in the best mood, or like not in the best it just fixes it, and it just takes all my worries away.
Okay.
It's amazing to be around that stuff. Yeah.
So like Haka said, there's not many words that can explain it, but if I had to use a word, I would say that I feel very enlightened, and like all my worries and like everything that all my worries are gone, and like all that matters is being out there, being able to like help heal the people. So there's not many words that can explain.
And like just like the people around you too play a big part and a big role in that. Like I wouldn't want it any other way. Like this is the best you can get, and it's immaculate. Like to me, like I just I love it so much. I wouldn't want it no other life.
Yeah, that's sounds amazing, and like you said, it's just kind of hard to explain it, and I guess Shailece, what do you have any input on that as well?
I don't.
No, okay. That's fine. But yeah, that's good to hear those types of things too. And I guess this is a kind of connecting question too. So, with all these practices that we do, and it makes us feel like these positive emotions and uplifting, enlightening, what are your thoughts on like, do you think it's important when it comes to like, counseling or healing someone, that if we incorporate these types of practices, or like we use these practices, like, do you think, so when we think about mental health, like we think about counseling and therapy and healing ourselves, and that could be from grief, or domestic violence, or our relatives that are dealing with substance abuse. Do you think it's important to use these cultural practices to help them heal from those types of situations?
Yeah, like I said, like no matter what kind of state you're in, whether it's like you're not in the best state of yourself, and maybe you could be having a hard time in your life at that point, I truly believe like this way of life, it's it really does heal, like it really does help. And just experiencing that myself growing up, like I've been raised around it, but still, no matter what, like if I'm not feeling the best or anything, the minute I'm out there, even just like powwow round dance, anything, it all goes away. Okay. And it's just kind of enjoying that moment and that feeling.
It's basically what Haka said. It's like, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, I do think it's important to practice these, because like Haka said, it is like the doing of like helping and healing the people. So yeah, I really do think it's important.
Okay.
And like like with mental health and stuff like that, like especially like on our like tribes, especially not just from anything in the world, like the amount of struggles gone through over the years and decades and stuff, like they've been through a lot. And I like to say like we're proud that it's still going, and that me being one of them, along with like my family and stuff, we're willing to do everything we can to keep it revived and keep it going. because it is very important to keep it that way, because through all the struggles of trying to take it away or trying to get rid of it, we are still here, and we're still doing it, and we really want to enhance that to everybody, that we are still here, and that we're not stopping.
Well, what would you, so say you're in a situation where you're in an environment where it's white predominant, or there's a lot of non-natives around you, and someone comes up to you and says, is culture in part or do you have to know culture in order to be Native American? Well, if they asked you that, what would your response be to that?
Like, do you have to know the culture to be Native? No, I just think rather you know your culture, or if you know very little or not at all, you still descend from your people, and you still have that in you, and you're still able to have that ability to keep learning. And even if you know a little bit, that's a lot, especially knowing what we have gone through and stuff, like, as people. It still matters, even knowing just that little bit, and it plays a key part in everything everybody does. And so, like, no, you don't have to be cultural to be Native. You're Native because that's who you are, and that's you come from, whoever you come from, whoever you descend from, that's you. The cultural side of things is just the way to keep it alive and to live it and stuff, and that's very important as well. But to me, no, it's just, if you're Native, you're Native. You still always have that chance to learn.
Okay.
Yeah. Like Haka said, it comes from your descendants, like from your ancestors, and you just gotta live who you are.
No, I don't think you have to be cultural to be Native. You're Native because that's who you are. And yeah, it's good to be cultural, but it's also good just to be Native. And knowing some is better than knowing nothing at all.
And I just ask these questions because you'd be surprised on some of the questions that you'd be asked and outside the reservation and just around the world. Unfortunately, a lot of people ain't really educated on tribes, and sometimes they kind of just put us in generalize and put us all into one tribe, and that takes away our identity in a way, because we're so there's a lot of similarities, but there's a lot of differences too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so just want to kind of get you guys to think about those types of things. And I went to a big university before, and it was a white predominant university, and those are some of the questions that were asked, and sometimes it might come off that they're being ignorant or some kind of racist way, but they really just sometimes just don't know. But there are some people that have ill intentions behind those questions. But so just wanted to kind of see what your thoughts are on those types of things, whatever. But another question too is why do you think it's important to keep these practices alive, or to keep practicing these types of things?
Yeah, like I said before, the amount of struggles that different tribes and different peoples have gone through, no matter how severe it was, it's always important. And growing up, I've learned that this is it's most wakam, most sacred, to keep it alive, because at some points back in the past, it was trying to get taken away. And one point on to pinpoint on that, boarding schools, for example, played a big part on that. That was one of the main focuses, basically to kill our culture and make us into one of them. And however you think of that, and to me it's most important. And I always think about that, and I always think do your best, try, even if you don't know a lot, you still have time, you're still you're still Native,
Right.
whether you know it or not, it's just it's always important, for any tribe, I think. And I don't know much about other tribes and stuff, but it's always just good to be respectful about it. And yeah.
Yeah, it's important to do. Like she said about boarding schools, they would do stuff so we can't speak our language. We couldn't do our ceremonies, and if we did, we would have to hide them. And yeah.
I think it is important because our ancestors fought for us to be able to do this. And like with the boarding schools, they used the slogan, kill the Indian and save the man. But now that nowadays, people are still trying to learn it, and it's important because they like risk their lives for us to know this stuff.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. You know, each of you bring up a good conversation or topic that maybe one of these podcasts that'll be the same. The sole focus is the boarding school era, and that can relate to intergenerational trauma. But you know, I'm glad that you guys recognize that and know about the boarding schools, and that's an important aspect to people understanding us as Native people. How, you know, like you said, it was to assimilate us, to cut our hair, bleach our hair. You know, there's been horror stories of when, you know, young kids try to speak their language and they would get needles and poke their tongues and things like that, and just really, you know, really bad things. And you know, I was actually telling this story to a non-native before about how, you know, just imagine if today, you know, if you're at home and the government comes and takes your child and, hey, we're going to take care of your child, we're going to provide them school or, you know, education, we're going to give them a home, and then they can come back and visit on weekends or the summertime. And so, you know, some had a choice where they let them go and some were just forcibly taken. But think about having a child and it's taken from you and then you never see them again, you know, because unfortunately some of our relatives never made it back home. You know, that's why they have these really mass grave sites, because a lot of kids died, you know. So, and I think about that and really kind of get emotional thinking about it. Like if I had a son or a daughter, they just took them, and I'm thinking, okay, they're gonna take care of my kid and they're gonna come back, and then I never see them again. I don't know where they're at, you know, never again, you know. So I think about those things, and you know, just saying keeping the culture alive. That's really powerful, and our ancestors made us or gave that to us, and we're trying to keep that alive. And so, you know, they're really key conversations, and I'm glad that each of you know about those things and mention those types of topics.
Well, like a key takeaway I get from, you know, like the history of boarding schools and stuff was the big heart that people had in them to keep it in them and not let them take it away. And that's what I cherish most, because if they didn't, then, you know, who knows if we would still have it around. And, you know, knowing that it has already happened and that we're still living it, you know, I still strongly believe like our people in different tribes have such a big heart, and the way our heart and the way we care about these things is just immaculate compared to other people. Like these, like Native American tribes in general, it's just different in a good way. But like, I don't know how to explain it, you know. Again, no words, you know. It's just an immaculate feeling. Like when I think of Native people in general, I think of like the heart and how much people have gone through to be able to get here today and to keep us still alive. And I think that's just a key part in everything. Right.
I think, you know, one word that comes to mind with you sharing that is the word resilience. You know, our people are so resilient, and you know that can come back to mental health too. Is like, you know, just think of our elders, like maybe that was something they were thinking, like, I got to push through for my tribe. I got to keep doing this. You know, I'm not going to let them take this away from me. I'm going to keep doing this and have a determination and resilience, you know. And so that comes back to the mental health, is having that strong mental mindset too, you know.
Yeah, I think mental health does play a big part, because I think, you know, back then we weren't giving up. You know, the amount of perseverance they gave into all that, you know, really shows.
Okay. We are going to go into another commercial break here, and we'll have another word from our sponsors, and then we'll have our next set of youth come in and just talk a little bit more on connecting culture with mental health. So we'll return here shortly, and yeah.
Morningstar Counseling is a Native and woman-owned mental health organization that was established in 2012. Morningstar Counseling incorporates cultural values and practices through prevention, outreach, psychoeducation, and training, and serves individuals and families across the lifespan.
All right, and we're back. Once again, thank you for our sponsors for making Indigenous Voice possible. We appreciate you and giving the youth an outlet to voice their opinions and perspective. And we're bringing back our additional guest here that previously spoke, and we wanted to talk more on connecting culture with mental health, and want to give them an opportunity to share their insights as well. But also we have one of our youth that's going to talk about an interesting story with her relative and with the military, and we'll end with that after these questions here. So one of the questions that we were talking about is how we describe culture, and each of you kind of shared that before, but what kind of cultural practices do you participate in? That could be, making traditional foods, dancing, sewing, singing, sweat. So anybody just hop in to share. Yeah. So what kind of practices do you participate in? Well, I think you already shared too. So if you want to share again, you can. You don't have to.
They're all looking at me. Oh yeah, and one thing I forgot to mention is like round dances and kahominies too. We do a lot of those, and they're very fun as well.
I take part in many different things actually. I dance at every powwow. I had just given up my 2022-2023 Miss Isanti Princess crown, and I go to round dances and kahominies. I sing at drums, and I sew ribbon skirts, and I bead earrings. I do a whole bunch of different varieties, and cooking also.
Okay.
I participate in learning my language and playing like moccasin games and hand games.
Okay. Nice.
I partake in dancing, hand games and stuff like that. Gore dancing with the Taipa Society, and I just learned how to sew my own regalia and stuff.
Nice. Okay. Awesome. All right. So with those activities in mind and those practices, what are some of the teachings that you were taught about those that come with those activities? Like, before we talked about having a good mindset when doing these things, but is there any other teachings or any teachings that was instilled when practicing these? Or anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, a lot of things.
There's like also rules to like certain men, like only men do moccasin games. There's like, all men and women they can sew and everything, but during like traditional games, moccasin games, men only do hand games, both genders do it. But besides that,
like there's different protocols, different ways of doing things. Yeah, they're also fun and stuff, but there's still protocols that you have to follow, kind of basically like following the tradition type thing.
Okay.
And when dancing, like kahomini, for example, men are on the outside, women are the inside, and men are like the protectors throughout.
Okay.
And like kind of like powwows too. Like I was told one time, I don't know everything, just kind of just saying like what I was like told and stuff. One thing, like powwows, how men dance on the outside. Like even just you see it in intertribals too, like they dance on the outside, and like the women and children dance more closer to the middle. It like kind of represents like buffalo, like how when they see a threat coming, they do you know, like kind of like, you know, the men, they protect as much for the children and the women, and they're in the middle. And I was told, like in the powwow circle too, like it kind of represents that.
Right. That brings up a kind of, I love that you correlate that together, that teaching with, you know, with our animals, and you know, how it has a similarity in the circle too. It brings me to the thought of has everybody seen the Avatar movies before?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So you know, what's interesting is James Cameron is the director of that movie. He's an amazing director, does a lot of movies. But he did some really extensive research when he was making this movie, and, you know, talking and consulting with tribes and just kind of getting the idea of some of those cultural practices and beliefs and things like that. And you can kind of make those connections when you watch the movies. I mean, you know, there's a lot of, basically, you know, people are calling it blue Pocahontas, blue people with Pocahontas and stuff like that. In a way, it kind of is. But, you know, there is some kind of, when I was watching it, there's some teachings into that, you know, like, for example, when the first movie, where when the main character Jake Sully is trying to learn the ways and become part of the tribe, you know, one thing that you notice, like, they take their hairpiece and it connects to the animal, and that's how they ride, and they make that connection. And I thought that was interesting, because that's kind of how we are as Native people. We have that connection with our surroundings and our environment, our animals and things like that. It isn't just like, you know, oh, that's just a buffalo over there. You know what I mean? There's a reason we treat the animals the way we do and respect them, you know. And just talking from my tribe, you know, we have 12 clans, and each of our clans had a different responsibility, you know, and we reference to animals in our clan system. And then also, you know, when we go hunting, we use a lot of the pieces from the animal, you know, from the sinew, the antlers, the hide, and the meat. It isn't just like kill it, take the meat, and leave. You know what I mean? We always use, and we took what we needed, not being greedy and things like that. So just kind of making those connections with the movie and things like that. I think that's amazing that, you know, you shared that. Just kind of made me think about that. Okay, who was next? Was it?
It was like, sorry, just like to pinpoint like the Avatar type thing. What was cool about it is what, like, we took away, you know, like my dad explained it too, like the way their spirituality is, like, with all that, it's kind of similar to how we do our things, like the way they are so close with the spirit world. And you know, it just, like, yeah, it's a movie, but like we can relate to some of the things they do, like the way the relationships with animals they have, like it kind of similar to how we have a relationship with different animals, you know. For example, like horses, you know, growing up I learned a lot about horses from my auntie Misty. She knows a lot, and that's where I learned a lot from her and stuff like that. And, you know, one of the things with like horses is that the minute you're on one, they know how you feel. So if you feel scared, they know you're scared. And, you know, really you just gotta, what I always got told, the minute you get on one, you know, oh, you know, good mind, good thoughts, you know, that's like another thing with like like the relationship with animals is that like they know, and not a lot of people take that into thought. And, you know, that's what makes like different tribes special, is that the relationships they have with animals. And another thing is like hunting, like my dad and my family, you know, my uncles and stuff, they all hunt. And one thing they do is even after they do get like a buck or something, they pray. They pray for, you know, the animal and stuff, like, because basically the animal, like, even though you shot it, it gave up its life to provide for you. And, you know, you still gotta think about that. You know, you just don't think about yourself. You think about this animal too that you're doing. And so that's one thing they do. They pray after they use it. They pray.
And that's what they do that in a movie too, you know, like when they pray about that. That's cool. And I'm glad you mentioned that too, because that is a practice that some of our people do. And it kind of goes on to the next topic too. In that movie, in the movie, they talk about how their you know, their creator, they call it Awa, and how Awa gives that energy to them but someday they have to give that energy back, you know, when they pass away, you know. So there's kind of a brief scene where there's an avatar, they're doing like a ceremony for them, and then there's these like life seeds that float around, and you know, he explains that creator gave us this life, and then, you know, when we pass on, we give that life back and we give it back to creator, you know. And that was kind of referenced in the movie too, you know what I mean? That's something I was like, wow, that was another connection I made, like, yeah, that's something that our Native people, you know, follow or believe, is this life is here temporarily, but eventually we have to give it back, which is why we're buried in the ground to be part of Mauna, or you know, the earth again and stuff like that. So I think that was an interesting connection too. Yeah, sorry, I can talk about movies all day and making those connections, you know. But so we're kind of coming back to like the different kind of activities and practices that were taught to you. I guess for you two, what are some of like the teachings that come along with that? So like if you dance or your language, what are some of the teachings that are taught for you? Like, so maybe your language, you don't use it in an appropriate way, or you need to do it this way, or when you're dancing you need to you know, you can only dance at certain songs or stuff like that. Like, what are some of the teachings that were taught to you growing up?
Well, like after the grand entry, after Haiti watching my tribe's power, after the grand entry, they'll do the flag song, and they'll excuse all the lady dancers and have all the male dancers out there, and they call it the four-tail dance songs. It's like the four-tail dance songs will be Umaha songs, and everybody would dance, and like after the song will be over, they'll have they'll keep going with the only four tail dancers, and with that there's a whistle song, and they'll say Omaha words in the songs, and basically just
Okay. All right.
I don't think there's a bad way you could learn your language.
Okay.
I think you just learn it.
Mm.
And there's like a female way to end a sentence and a male way to end a sentence. And you just gotta learn both for the female and the male.
Basically, just do whatever you're comfortable with, whatever comfortable way of learning, whatever way suits you.
Okay. What types of feelings do you feel when you're practicing these teachings, like, or these, you know, these practices? What kind of feelings come with that?
As for me, like I said, I feel very joyful doing it. It relieves a lot, and when I'm out there, I just think of my people. I think of me. I think with a good thought, and it just brings a lot of happiness being around, you know, the traditional ways and seeing everybody dance and having everyone have a good time and smiling. That just makes my heart feel warm and happy, and I just feel very comfortable whenever I'm doing practices and ceremonies, all sorts.
Okay. So the question was like, what kind of feelings come with like these practices that we do?
Oh, it makes me feel good. Seeing everyone happy and learning, and like especially at Powell's, people are just dancing away, smiling.
Feels good to take on the role of, you know, other ancestors, what they did back then.
Like, it's so fun, and like even the feeling when you're not doing like at a powwow or around dance. Like me and my sister, we always talk like, dang, like I need a powwow in my life, or like I need a roundy or something.
Right.
Like you just miss those feelings. Like those feelings are just, they're just so great that you just never want to
need.
Okay.
You know, I feel good when I'm out there dancing. I see all the small, younger ones in me, you know, just out there dancing away. No regalia or nothing. Just, you know, like seeing families come together, dancing intertribals, and just talking, dancing, singing, whatever. Just makes me feel good.
Feels great, you know, to see the young ones out there, you know, enjoying just being happy and just being free, because it's like that was taken away.
Right.
And now the younger ones, they
Yeah, it's like when you go to like powwows and stuff, like whether they're in a regalia or not, like I used to be one of those kids, like when I was like younger, like I had a regalia, but even like sometimes even just like at home, like just dancing, like it's just always such a good feeling to, like even when you hear a song, like any song, it's just always a good feeling. And like, you know, and at one point that was taken away, or it was illegal to do that, like any of that. And so like at powwows, seeing like little ones dance, it's cute, but like you think about it, if you really think about it, like it's really a great sight to see, because they were really trying to take it away in the past, knowing that you still see them, so these little ones dancing around.
I think that's a good segue into our next question here. The next question is like, why is it important to keep practicing these? Why is it important to keep these alive?
So that they don't die out. Just so keep going for more generations to come.
You know, you gotta remember people in a good way. You don't want the old traditional ways to die out, you know. And now I don't want to say disappear forever, because it's hard, you know, whenever it goes away. It's not like having, like, I evolve around it and be like, if that was to go away, I wouldn't know who I was anymore, you know.
Because like that's who we are, like, you know, me and my sister, we grew around it. So like if it was to ever be taken away, like even being like if we were ever like, you know, like I can't imagine the feeling like our people, like some of the people had like back then when it was like illegal to do it. Like I can't imagine that, because that's our life. And so I don't know how I'd be able to function, if I'm being honest, you know.
What about you, Chess?
I think it's important to keep practicing them, is because like basically what they all said is like, if it's gone, then Oaxaca said
Won't know how to function.
Okay. Well, thanks. Thanks for sharing all that, the four of you. I appreciate that. I want to focus on the story you were sharing with me, and Bethany can bring up that picture with your relative. But do you want to share more about that story, or just, I guess, share more about that?
Yeah. So our great grandpa, Walter Cody John, he was a Dakota code talker in World War II. He got the Congressional Medal of Honor. There was 2 medals given out. The gold medal was for the tribe, and the silver was for the family of my grandpa. But the tribe decided to give the family the gold medal, and the tribe would take the silver one. And coming from that, really makes me think like that. Sometimes that thought does come up, like doing anything like cultural or anything like that, like having that to think back on too. And he was a Dakota code talker, and what played a big role in that war was because Japanese and the Germans couldn't break the language. They didn't know how to understand it. They couldn't figure it out. Right. And that's why it was just so important. And he got the Medal of Honor for it. And I think that really shines light on our people and our tribe, because that did play a big role in that war.
Right.
Yeah, they couldn't figure it out. And I just think it's a really great opportunity to learn. Like even just that, taught us a lot. And I always remember to like honor that. And yeah.
And Bethany, you have the picture hold up? Yeah, so here's the picture that she's talking about here with her. You said your grandpa?
Yeah, that's my grandpa, Macky John. Okay. He's one of the sons of Walter Cody John. Our grandpa passed away back in 2006, I believe, yeah. About 17 years ago. And he he has the medal and he has my grandpa's flag and everything, and he's very knowledgeable on that too. And he really like explained it to us. Like even just like seeing him, you know, it always gets brought up. We always learn something new from him, you know, rather if it's anything or if it's just that in general. And yeah, it's always.
I would like to point out, in this picture we stood in front of one of our ancestors, Dawasa. We are descendants from him. So
he was a part of the Dakota 38 that were exiled in 1862. Dawasa, the singer. Thing about what I was told from my uncle Red Wing Thomas was he sang before he went into battles and would sing when he comes out. And I think that like every time I think of that, you know, I think about back, like, you know, just sitting in class and he brought that up. It always just like even he doesn't know like some of the stuff, you know, that gets told to me. Like I cherish it and would never forget it.
Right.
Like even something simple like that, like knowing that about him, you know, like that's just something I always think about. Yeah, there was a lot, you know, and that's a whole nother topic. But like that's a lot.
I would agree that I think that's an interesting topic to, you know, possibly even bring him in as a, you know, your relative come in and talk about those types of things, you know. And I know we were talking about doing an episode on the Lakota 38 plus 2, right? Yeah, we're thinking about doing an episode on that too. So definitely keep you in mind for that, you know, as well. But yeah, thanks for sharing that. I appreciate that. And I really appreciate you acknowledging your elders and taking the time to hear their stories and then recognize that, and also just valuing that, you know. And I think that's also a big part of our who we are as Native people, is we value our elders and we listen to them, and we listen to their stories they pass on to us, so we can pass that on too. You know what I mean?
They really do know everything. They've been through a lot. You know, even some of our grandmas and grandpas that are still here today, you know, went through boarding schools. Like I got some that have stories, but we don't really hear about it because, you know, that's a very traumatic topic to talk about. Right.
Yeah, and I it's really important that, you know, we listen to those things and pass those on as well, you know. And both you ladies, you know, you're actually going extra step by your elder that was behind them, you know, that picture. Just recognize that where you're coming from too. I think that's powerful as well too. But okay, yeah, thanks for sharing that. Next, what I want us to move into now is kind of one of our final segments of the show, and just to kind of give our listeners an idea of what a psychoeducation flyer is. So psychoeducation flyer is, we pick a mental health topic and we do some more research on it, and we share some more information on it that the communities might not know. And this project happened by working with our partners with the public schools, so the Nation Public Schools, Walt Hill and Winnebago and Santee. And so each month we have 2 psychoeducation flyers that we create, and the two topics we want to focus on this podcast is ADHD and suicide prevention. And so we have the flyer up here now, what ADHD, and I'll just read the definition of what that is briefly. Also, attention deficit hyperactive disorder, or ADHD, is exhibited by not being able to focus, being overactive, not being able to control behavior, or a combination of these. For these symptoms to be diagnosed as ADHD, they must be out of the normal range for a person's age and development. And so this is just a definition of it. ADHD, you know, it's, you know, young kids can have it too. They can develop it too. But what I learned too, as well as an adult, it can become more severe if you're not aware of it or you haven't been diagnosed with it. If you're having those troubles of focusing or overactive, you can go to the hospital and get assessed with it. They have assessments that assess you. But one of the things that happens if you don't recognize that or are coping with that is you get restless. You know, your sleep patterns might mess up because of your ADHD. It gets more worse if you don't handle it as you get older. So that's there. These are shared on our webs, or also on our websites, but also on our social medias too, social media pages here. So that's ADHD. I'll go into the next flyer that we have. And so, like I said, the next flyer is suicide prevention. And the reason why we picked both of these topics is Suicide Prevention Month was in September, and October is ADHD Awareness Month as well too. But suicide prevention, that's always an intense conversation and something we always want to keep at the forefront for our relatives and all of us here. And so I would just kind of read some definitions here off our flyers here. So what is suicide? Suicide is defined as death caused by self-directed injurious behavior with intent to die as a result of the behavior. And then a suicide attempt is a non-fatal, self-directed, potentially injurious behavior with intent to die as a result of the behavior. And then suicide ideation refers to thinking about, considering, or planning suicide. So when we say suicide ideation, think of idea that's in that word ideation. So that's just thinking about it, considering it, and planning suicide. And one of the areas I wanted to focus on with this flyer here is what a protective factor is. So this is something that prevents that from happening, or it lowers the chances of suicide. But protective factors can be they're good. So think of protective factors preventing you from suicide, anxiety, depression, and things like that. And if you read here with what are protective factors for suicide prevention, so remember this keeps you from suicide. And so one of the protective factors is strong sense of cultural identity. That's something we've been talking about all day, is the culture and keeping that a part of our identity and keeping that alive. So that's a protective factor that's proven to keep people from suicide. And so support from partners, friends, and family, feeling connected to others, feeling connected to school, community, and other social institutions, availability of consistent and high quality physical and behavioral health care. So I really wanted to put that first one, the cultural identity, because that's something that we talked about today, but that's really important. By everything that we talked about today, just talking about the singing, dancing, being around a big drum, and just practicing that language, that's all going to help us fight off these things like this, like suicide, anxiety, and depression, and things like that. So I just wanted to make that a focus there too. Next, we will go into some Facebook pages we want to make our listeners aware of, and Bethany will pull those up. So we, as Morningstar Counseling, we partner with Society and Care and a lot of the initiatives that we do. Hence, one of these things we're doing now, the podcast here, Society and Care and Morningstar Counseling made this possible, and it's really great programming. We're excited to have it going and continue. But we want to make sure our listeners are aware of to find more initiatives that are happening. So we have the Society of Care page up now. This is the general page that you can find all updates consisting of anything Society of Care and Morningstar related. And so this is where anything in our all tribes and relatives in Nebraska can participate in this. And then we'll also have other Society of Care pages broken down into the areas that they serve. So for example, we have the Santee Society of Care page up here. This is the initiatives, programming, and resources that the Santee can participate in and utilize here. I just encourage everybody to like and share these different pages and just become aware of with the activities and resources that we have coming up through these social media pages here. And then finally, we have the Northeast Nebraska Society of Care here. This is more in the Omaha, Nebraska, Walt Hill, Winnebago area. And this is some other exciting events that are coming up too. So just take your time to look at these different Facebook pages, become knowledgeable of what they are and the different types of initiatives that we have going on here. Check back frequently. And we're always looking for ways to partner with our communities. If you have an idea or have an event coming up, we're always more than welcome to come and participate and collaborate in any way. So just keep that in mind for future reference. So we will be closing out the podcast here. And I just want to give all of our youth time for closing words or any kind of closing remarks. So go ahead, and if you have anything you want to share or any shout outs, so now is the time to share that, or any closing thoughts that come to mind.
I would like to say that As someone who has experienced like suicide and those thoughts and ideas and emotions, do not be afraid to reach out. At least talk to somebody. Like I said before, write it out. Anything to not keep it cooped up. Like I said before, also asking for help is not a weakness.
Mm-hmm.
It makes you stronger, and talking about it will, help you and benefit you more. So I just want to say, like, take the time out to, and all you other relatives and friends of someone who is, living that, take time to understand and read over it. That way you can help them and understand what they're going through. That way you're not just looking at them as someone who's upset, and you just understand what they're going through and take time to listen to them while they're...
All right. Thank you for that.
My words are like advice to anybody, like on the cultural side and learning, would be, always have an open mind. You never know, like, no matter what you get told, you could use it. You could, it's just as powerful, like just being able to take in information and to be able, like, even just taking into the information, you have it, like, in your head, like, you think about that. Like, some information that gets told to me sometimes just sticks with me, and it, like, when I think about certain things, it'll come up, and like I think about that, and just my advice would just always keep an open mind through what anybody is telling you, and yeah.
Also, say a prayer if you need it. Any morning, say you take a drink of water. This is what my ate told me, my father. Take a simple drink of water. That could be a prayer. Any prayer can go a long ways. Anything that can help you.
No closing words?
Just do you.
Okay.
Make more tomorrows.
All right, and we'll take a little moment to get our other youth here to come in and say their words. So give us a few moments here, and we'll be right back with closing words from our other group. All right, and we have our last two Native youth here that just want to give you an opportunity to share any closing remarks or comments, or maybe anything you learned today, or even some shout outs, just whatever you want to. So go ahead and share any words that you might have.
I just want to thank you guys for allowing me to have this opportunity to be here and like express my thoughts on like what we was talking about, and thank you guys for allowing me to be here.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
Thank you for
thank
coming.
you for allowing me to be here too. It was a welcome to be on this. It's my first time. I'm nervous. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you both for coming, and the other group as well. I think all of you had really great insights and good comments to share, and I just want to say thank you for being here and just being, one, vulnerable to share these types of perspectives. I know sometimes it can be challenging just because there might be some unhealed trauma there, or even just the anxiety of just speaking your mind sometimes. But just being here, I just want you guys to know that we appreciate you being here, sharing that. But also just think about any words that you shared today and gave out. You're helping other relatives. You're giving them perspective, and you're helping them understand certain things too. So just keep that in mind too. You're helping your communities and people as well. But Shailece, did you have anything you wanted to close out on?
I would just say to the viewers that if you are wanting to learn your culture, that it's not too late. And thank you to the Santee Buffalo Talking Circle, or Young Buffalo Talking Circle.
Young Buffalo.
For you guys, thank you guys for coming down and sharing your perspectives. And you guys really know a lot about your traditions and your culture, and that inspires me to want to know my own culture and my own language. And I thank you guys for that, for opening another idea in my mind.
Yeah, that was one highlight I noticed too. Is I don't like to measure certain things, or say this one is better than that. But honestly, when it comes to the the level of comfortability and the level of knowledge that you know for your own language and culture, I would say you guys score higher than I with my own cultural knowledge and comfortability, you know. And you guys are your youth, and you have so much time left, you know, or you have a lot of more time ahead of you. And so I feel like you're already this advanced in knowing your culture and practicing. I just, you know, I'm excited to see what your future holds and just learning more about that, and, you know, just doing that for your people too. So I really value that and just wanted to highlight that too. So, but yes, so listeners, thank you again for tuning in. Appreciate you for taking the time to tune into our podcast and listening to our amazing youth and their perspectives. Like we shared previously, Indigenous Voice is sponsored by Morningstar Counseling and Society of Care, and we air our episodes premiere the last Monday of each month, and that'll be at the noon hour on the Big Voice Facebook page and also their YouTube. If you have any other if you want to collaborate or have any other ideas or have any other Native youth that want to come on and express themselves or share their insights, please feel free to reach out to us and contact Morningstar Counseling or Society of Care, and we definitely would like to have you on for future podcasts. I want to give a shout out to Bethany here, our behind the scenes, for making these podcasts happen with the technical side and the camera operating and all that. She does an amazing job, so shout out to you. And also to Shailece, my co-host here, and being here helping me co-host this amazing show and bringing her insights into this as well. So we look forward to talking to you soon, and have a good rest of the day, and we will see you next month.